My name is Nick Longo. This guy over here is?
I'm Jay Master.
Yeah, and we are here to talk a little bit about Adobe Dimension and Adobe Aero and how we use it together. Both Jay and I are both heavily into packaging design and do a lot of great work for our clients in that zone. And we're going to kind of show you how we use Adobe Dimension and now Aero to show off our packaging stuff to our clients. How many times do you have something, Jay, and it's like not even printed yet, and yet people need a visual or a nice hero shot of your packaging, and it's not even available, right?
Literally every single project, because when you're trying to show something to a client, you're trying to show it in its live space, right?
Exactly.
As it exists in the wild.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So we're going to show you a little bit about how we use it. We're going to actually build a few models. I'm building a small sales sheet for one of my clients, and Jay's going to be doing a case study for his client and the projects that he's working on. So we're going to go right into an Illustrator file here that I have on my screen, and I'm going to show you a little bit about the method and the technique that we go through. So this is my kind of objective right now. I have this great little sales sheet I'm putting together for a client here. And the neat thing here is I have this space here that I'm kind of designated for a hero shot, and I got to start building something for these products and this packaging that we have done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to this dimension file, and I've already kind of set up something here where these are my 3 models. And I'm assuming, I'd love to know in chat if you guys have had any dimension experience at all. It'd be good to see what kind of skill level we have here.
It looks like we have a little bit of a mix going on. Some people are familiar with it and others aren't.
Good. Okay. Excellent.
So quite a range, I think.
Perfect. So I just made basically a new file, and this is all starter kit assets. So this is everything you get from Dimension. So basically you see here on the left, we got these models. I can just literally bring them over, drag them over to my setting here, and I will get these unique things here. Let's see, where did it go? Oh, I bet you I have it on some weird space thing. There it is. So it added this other bottle here. And you can see all I'm doing is I'm bringing things over. If I need to have a soda can, I can bring this over here. And I can orbit and go all around and show different angles and perspectives of where I'm going for. So what I've done here is I set up these 3. These are kind of my masters that I'm going to be using here. And I'll get rid of this guy. And if there's any questions while both Jay and I are working, just throw it in, and the other one will catch what we're being asked and hopefully answer your question. So got these ready to go. These are here. I usually take a quick screenshot of this because what I want to do is I want to go back to Illustrator, and I'm going to show you how I kind of built this. So here's that screen cap that we had. And all I'm going to do is with my box tool, I'm just going to give myself some kind of dimension here as far as what my artwork space is. And this could be different on each one. You might find that some of these tapers and everything really are cool in the way they work, but you could just kind of do this kind of stuff, find your shapes. Oops.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to create sort of a minimal die line, right?
Right, exactly. So I will just take all of these, give them no fill, and I'll throw in a hot magenta so I can see it. So now I have those, and what I did here was I kind of started building out my graphics. So I like to use one big, large artboard for each one of these things, and that way I'm understanding exactly what's there, what I'm using. I'll start with a white background here, and this is just a white box that's in the background. That way I know when I'm bringing it into some of these white models, if my intention is to have white as my background, I'm going to have it. I have no problem there. Then I have this great little pattern that we worked out for the brand. Some graphics here. You can see how everything's looking. Everything here is literally just all Illustrator art. And when that's all kind of said and done, I like to give enough bleed. I know you do the same thing too, Jay, right? Like you want to make sure when this art comes on that model, there's enough to wrap it on all sides, particularly if you're just doing glamour shots, like from the front. So that kind of works for me, yeah. Right? So real simple integration here. I will take the whole thing and I'll literally just right click it and I'll get it to add library. So Jay and I have built a library that we're already sharing. So that way, if I have anything he needs, it just shows up in the library. If he's updated or added anything in that, it shows up on mine as well, which is great. So here I know I've got this, and I can literally just double click on here, and I can call it new label 1. Okay. So I always make the habit of naming them, because when you go back in, sometimes you'll have multiple versions of the same art. You just want to know which one is. It's very time saving when you're in that zone.
Yep.
So let's go back, and I'm going to zoom into this one bottle here. Okay. And all I'm going to do on this one is just the front and maybe a little bit of the sides. On the carton, I'm going to go a little bit more crazy and show you everything there. So change starter assets to library. And now we are going to have our shared library. I can go here and say back to here, and the Jay and Nick one is here. And I can look and find everything that I have. So I can see these different ones are all ready to go. There's drink 1. I think I called it that earlier. And I'm dragging it right over to the model. And what I get is a great little preview. Now it's time to position this. So you can definitely scale this up. Whoops, double click here. You get your, let's see, come on. There we go. Why is that doing that?
You know, and one of the things we sort of went over in our last live was that there's 2 ways you can sort of go about creating a label. One is just instantly bringing your artwork, which is the easiest translation to say, okay, hey, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
But you can also add in, it's called decals to your models. That allows you to just add multiple items, badges, logos, artwork, whatever it is, to one particular model.
Great. Yeah, great suggestion there. I love that idea. So you can go against the proportion, you can stretch. A lot of times too, what you really would need to do is maybe finesse even the bottle size a little bit, and that's a simple change. You can just take the model and shrink it down a little bit more. But since we've got such a limited time, we're going to just really kind of stick to a lot of the basics here. You can always go back and refine these things. But little by little, I'm starting to build what I have here. And on this one, this is going to be my drink mix here that I will bring over. And you'll see how nice and fast it just brings things right over from your library. And now all you got to do here is get this one going to the right size. I love this little toggle here. Sometimes it looks like it's straight, but it might need a little optical kind of shift there. That looks good. And you'll see all it's doing is it's kind of making this mask on the actual model. And as you'll see, you can see when everything crops and goes off the edges, and now you reposition it to where you think it should go. Perfect. So now I'm really happy with that. And what's neat here is I can obviously kind of do a quick little orbit turn and see how everything's looking. This is really looking good. So now I can take my last one, which I believe I have is, did I save it yet? Nope, we'll go back. So that's gonna be this guy. Now, this carton got 4 sides, and what I wanna do is I'm gonna try to make this one piece in the sake of time to show you how this will work. So I duplicated that template 3 times, right? So I've got 3 of them here. So everything is there with a white background. All I'm gonna do is unclick the die line. So now I have all of my art and I'm ready to go. I'm gonna right click that, get that into library. And once it's in here, I see it there. This I can call carton because I wanna make sure I know which one is which. There we go. And now I'm gonna head back to Dimension and we'll see how this looks. So let's go, there's our carton, perfect. So watch this. This is where it gets a little fun and tricky. So I'm gonna bring it over to the carton. Let's go over here and zoom in a little bit. I can drag the artboard a little bit. I can change my angle just a bit to see how everything looks, because that nutritional panel, I want it to be on the flip side of this, okay? Have you done this yet where you've kind of done the wrap, Jay?
Yes.
Yeah, it is kind of fun because I've found it to be like sometimes I'm dead on, sometimes I'm way off. So as I do this, I'm going to try to figure out what this should start looking like.
And this is where it gets tricky, right? You know, I was just chatting with people about this, but the best way to go about these different panels is to use the decals, because you can apply a graphic, to each side.
Yes, totally.
And that will give you the most control.
So exactly. So I would have just maybe brought this in as the white background would be there, obviously. Bring in your pattern, the big square at the top. Bring in all those individual elements, and you get them placed. So I'm noticing here that I've probably got to make this a little bit more thin. and I can slide it this way. And let's get it a little bit wider here. I'm trying to get that bowl to cross the border, and that looks pretty good there. So when I turn here, there we go. So now I can see that I've actually got it at a good spot. If I need to go back and finesse it a little bit, I can definitely do that. But I'm going to show you really quick. I've kind of laid these all out, and I have a totally different, let's see here. Where is it? Dimension, there we go. So we have a few other models we're going to start messing around with. That was number 2. There we go. Awesome. So I'm saving that one. One thing I like to do is I save files as we go. Can't have 2 open at the same time on Dimension. So what I like to do is when I'm at a good point, I'll save it at a level and then basically keep doing that with each one. If I need to do individual ones, I'll do a save as and do the same thing. Is that kind of how you kind of handle that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Always save it along the lines.
Cool, cool. So all I did here was I realized when I had this that my little carton was a little short, and for the whole composition, I wanted to change it up a little bit. So one of the things you can do is you can go back to the starter assets, and they have things like cubes, they have the cylinder. So just as an example, I'll bring in a cylinder here. So I could have done this if I wanted to. And with the tools here, I'm gonna go to the scale and just bring this down a little bit. And if it's too tall, I can go into scale as well, and I can take this thing and just flatten it a little bit. And let's say I want that one instead of the cube. We'll go back here, select this guy, and your tools here will help you along the way. You'll see like this one here is just your move tool. So it will move it in sync with the proportion of your entire thing, okay? So I
don't know if you guys noticed too, when he was bringing in that model, you could see a blue square on the grid below. That's right, exactly where it's going to be placed.
There you go. That's such a good thing, because as I was bringing things over, not paying attention to that, and sometimes they go into some odd space in the back. This allows it to really, really work nicely, and you get it in there really good.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes if they get lost in 3D space somewhere.
Yeah. It's like a predictor, you know? Mm-hmm. One thing you can always do is when you look this from the side, here's where you can really kind of see how off you might be. So this has been my my go-to tactic to make sure I'm getting things right. So I can level it up there, and then this guy needs to obviously move a little bit back here.
Yep. And then when you're working in project files, are you typically also creating camera bookmarks that allow you to look at the front, left, top, right?
Isn't that such a great concept of how we can do that now? So like what Jay was mentioning is you could basically get these things and start showing them in different camera angles. So let's say I want to do one from like this, like really from the bottom looking up, correct?
Yep.
So from here, I can go to this little spot here, and I can bookmark this, and I can say save, and I can call this low angle, right? And now that's saved as one of my bookmarks. So when I go back here, I can do it from a top angle, go back here, there's my low one, I make a new one, and I say top angle. Great. So now you're saving any positioning or any kind of the arrangement, it doesn't stay, right? I think it's just your angle. If you move something, correct, it's obviously a second one. So that's kind of how I would do that. And now I've got all this. So if I pop this back here, I can go back to my presets, and I can go top angle, goes right back to those positions, and we're good to go. So I'm kind of happy where all this is. What I'm going to want to do now is I'm going to do a quick version of showing you how I would bring in a background. And this is where it gets fun, right? Because Jay and I were comparing notes, and we're figuring out we have totally different ways of how we do this, which is kind of fun, right? Like there's so many different ways you can do this. You can build your own, you can bring in backgrounds and assets that you want to use and have fun with. But for this one here, what I did was I just found this really great blurred image of a kitchen. And if you want to see here, this is not a backdrop image. Sometimes these are very hard to find on stock photography, particularly the ones you want to fit your setting up right. So all I've done here is I'm going to show you, I'm going to move this out of the way. This is basically, that's what the image looked like. And I didn't like its perspective. So what you're going to do is you can bring in these, they're called planes, okay? And the plane here, I'll get rid of that one. just like you said earlier, when I bring it in, I'm going to see a preview. That's the perspective I wanted. I want it to be a new floor. Okay. So from this, I'm going to scale it up a little bit. Go back to the scale tool. And I'm going to get this to where I think it kind of works. Now I can slide it here and get it more wide. And there, I've made my own environment by putting this here. And if I want to, these planes can take on any of the assets that you have as far as in your starter library. So for now, I'm just going to take matte finish and I'll bring it over here. So I get this thing here. I can hit quick render and you'll see here, all of a sudden, I'm starting to get the beginnings of what this looks like, right? This is looking really cool. The quick render is just a way to see, I think you use this as well, right? Just along, some people actually have it on as they're working, right? I noticed that too.
Yeah, because when you render, renderings don't take as long as some other 3D programs. But
Correct.
You know, if you're rendering at a high quality, even as a PSD, it can take 5 to 20 minutes depending on your computer.
Exactly. Yeah. So that gives me a quick idea of what I'm doing too. But I want to show you another one. This is really neat as well. So let's say you are trying something a little bit different, and I'm going to take this background here, and let's find a new one. So I'm going to trash that one. And for here, let's find a new one. So we're going to take, I have this one that's really nice. It's a little bit more color toned to the tonal values and everything that's in our colors for the brand. And that is this one. So it has this oat background. Great. So we're a little off though. Our color's not matching here, right? We've brought in a whole new background with different lighting and a different light source. Definitely feels more like in the morning, right? So all you got to do here is I'm going to hit this match image. And right now I don't want to resize my canvas. All I want to do is create lighting to match what this is. So what it's going to do is it's going to look at that photo and you can see it's rendered me now all the lighting based on this image that we've just put in there. And this is such a great tool, right? Because it's like, you can go in there and there's probably many more demos that will show you how to go into lighting more specifically. But for that quick fix, just amazing. One more change I want to do is now our plane here looks a little bit different. So let's take some white oak maybe and drop that in there. Maybe even a little bit something different. I'll try the walnut. That looks good, right? Not too bad.
Yep.
All right, let's do a quick render and see how it's looking. So again, all of a sudden I'm starting to get those visuals and I'm seeing it looks so real, right? It's like, this is where it's kind of eye-popping to me, right? Do you feel the same way? I love this stage.
Yeah, no, I love watching it come to life.
Exactly. It's so neat. So that's kind of what you can do there. The only other one I want to show you is one that you can actually do. And this was actually, I think when Jay and I were talking, he was showing me one of the ones that he did. And I thought this was really cool. This is where you could almost create your own studio-like background. And Jay's going to go heavily into this with his demo. But what's neat about this is you can bring in those planes and you can bring in all these different assets of your backgrounds and the textures and everything else. And what you get is something like this. Now, it doesn't look like something that different, but when I scroll out and I zoom around here, watch what happens. You're seeing that we have like this whole studio setup where I've brought in the planes, I've pulled colors from my branding, and I've brought in this little water splash. And that's so easy. You literally just take these little things, drop them in, and you'll get these different water splashes throughout, okay? So here again, I could do a quick render, and you'll start to see the true color and how this works. So this is just an awesome tool. I love seeing this. And to me, it opens up a whole new kind of perspective, no pun intended, or actually pun intended, with Dimension, that if you can't find the right background for what you're working on, just build it, right? Like you've got your colors, you've got your brand, like just have fun with it and do something really quick like that. So that's
Absolutely.
a little bit,
yeah.
That's a little bit how I'm doing it. And then what I'll show you is when we go back to Illustrator, I go back to my little sales sheet and I brought in the render here. And now I have this fantastic thing to just mask in here. And all of a sudden, now within an hour, I can go back, send this to the client. I can even send the client a 3D link that they can look at on a phone or right through email. They don't even need to have any Adobe app, and they can actually preview this. And we're going to show you how you can even take it a step further in just a second when we go to Jay's. But this to me saves me so much time. And to be honest with you, this isn't even a placeholder. Like this would work on their website. This would work on like Amazon photos when you got to do them for Amazon Fresh, you name it, right? You got everything you need here before it's even made. Such a good tip. So that's mine. I hope you guys kind of dug that. It looks really cool. Jay, are you ready to kind of take it over and show us what you're going to do?
I am. Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to switch over to Jay's. I'm switching over to chat. We're going to take a look and see how it's going, and drop us any questions here as well. I'll kind of keep the questions going as Jay's working. And here we go. All
right. So this is an imaginary beer brand I made for this, Back Trails Brewery. So either as a case study or as a presentation to your client, one of the things I wanted to do was, create a can art that I could present to them, making a model. But more importantly, what I wanted to show you guys was how to sort of get out of the box of creating just a background image and actually creating your own set, which Nick sort of touched on a little bit ago there. So what I have over here is the can art that I built that I have applied to a model. I'm going to bring you guys into the set and show you guys.
Yeah, this is great.
In the pine. So what I wanted to do was build a set based off of this artwork using elements of the pine trees, the sky, and the can. So let's go ahead and jump over into dimensions. And so this is what I built over here. As you can see straight on. So what I did is I basically, with the can here, applied the artwork that I have. I can show you guys real quick how you get into that. So I have my graphic over here. You can squeeze it, scale it, rotate it, whatever you want to do with it. And so now when I zoom back out of here, you can start to see how I sort of started to build this set.
That's amazing, dude.
So I took how I did this basically because my trees in my illustration are flat, right? So they're not like full-on pine trees like cylinders or cones or anything like that. So what I did was I took a cone. Let me just bring in a cone actually. Right here, sorry, get that to go. Sorry about that, get that there. So I brought in a cone, I flattened the cone essentially, and then have two different shades of, bring this in right here, just as a quick example. Boom. And there's my pine tree right there. So all I did is I applied a texture that I had made in Illustrator and started to build my trees out that way. So I have two different colors, a darker blue, a lighter blue. I used a plane as the basic ground. Got this texture off of Adobe Stock. But then I wanted to have some sort of other texture in there too. So, I went on Adobe Stock and I was looking for some models and found this fabric. So I use fabric as sort of, backdrop on the, for the ground. I use the sky in the background on a plane, and then
love it.
Added in some stars, planets, etc., so that you can sort of see how that was created. Then now I have my camera set up here. This is a big file, so it takes a little bit of a moment to sort of reset itself.
It's kind of neat though too, with all of those things being independent, it's still running rather quickly. But this to me, it feels like an art project you would have made like a shadow box in school, right? It has that same vibe, and now you've brought it to a digital format.
Right, like, wanted to get sort of a paper sort of feel to it, and something that can have depth that's just different than the usual, 3D that you might see.
Yeah.
So if we can go back then into Illustrator, I'll show you what this rendered guy looks like. And there it is. So I have the first segment then of my presentation. You know, one of the really fun things about doing this too, and I didn't do this in Aero, but I've seen other people do this, where you can export out each of these objects into Aero and create a sort of walkthrough of things, where you could have pine trees on the side, and you could have a can off in the distance so that you actually walk towards the can itself.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what you can do with it.
That's our next task for sure.
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot. And even in Aero too, you can animate as well.
Yeah.
So the next thing was I wanted to also create a 6-pack.
Yeah,
this is the final render.
People are kind of digging it. People saying it's so much easier to create this than doing it the old way, right? Like it's so fast. Just
for sure.
The results. I mean, just look at your rendering. I think there's such a neat kind of contrast between the realism of the can and then this kind of dark, kind of, you know, non-detailed version. And just getting that creative like liberty is just such a blast on this. Really cool.
I agree. Let's go into my 6-pack.
There you go. So this was another model, or did you actually make this? How did you make the 6-pack?
So the 6-pack was, I downloaded this off of Adobe stock.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of great models you can get off of stock, and use. You know, one thing I wanted to mention too is that when you are actually creating basic objects, and I can show you in a minute here, like say I brought in this cylinder, you can't wrap a decal onto a straight cylinder. You have to actually convert it to a model.
Yes.
Which is actually a really easy thing to do.
One step. Yeah.
One step. So let me just show you guys that real quick, right? So here, and then if I go over to my actions, you convert this to a standard model, which then by going up to cylinder, clicking on your little arrow to the right, now I have an option to add in a decal.
Perfect.
So what I'll do is I'll bring in my label, and we'll just apply to that, which is the same thing that was applied on all of these cans, right?
Perfect.
And you can just apply that just like Nick was doing. But let's go ahead and just get rid of this.
But see, that's a great thing too, because it's just one little step makes that now editable and be able to do that. Someone commented too, do we mostly focus on product design, or do you ever work on digital projects to display in 3D? And I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
Because like this is my first ever exploration into anything 3D when it comes to this stuff. I have been print 100% most of my career. So to have this now, I think of it as this like intro for us, like unbelievable. Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do. You know, I actually started doing design in 3D. I used to work for Konami. And so, you know, when I first started out, I was mapping soccer players' faces.
Yeah.
And so this is a much simpler translation. So the nice thing about this is like the 6-pack. So you have these cans and you can access any one of these cans. So as I click through here, you can see it going to different cans. I can also change the color of the tabs themselves if I wanted to do that. By just going in the base color, and I just make them white. I could apply a texture to that. I could apply anything to that I wanted to.
Yes.
So, you know, you can really, you know, once you start thinking about how you can apply it all, you can do a ton.
You know what I love too is how many times have you had a client say, oh, dude, I like the white caps, but can I see it in the gold, the black, the blue, the light blue? And,
right.
Right. And that's going to take you a few hours on a PSD. This is so great. Being able to just click, save, click, save. It's such a time saver when it comes to this. And you just look like the ultimate hero to your client. I think that's the #1 reason we're both using this to this degree.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, once you start getting into those small iterations on things that, you know, to be able to apply it quickly to something and then show it to them.
Yeah.
Is fantastic.
Yeah, that's great, dude. And like, keep going, man.
So like Nick was just saying, so you duplicate something, which is really easy. Either Control C or Apple CV, or with your option shift, hold, drag. But Nick was saying, say the client wanted to just see those tabs in gold.
Yeah.
Right. Something like that. But anyhow,
love it.
You know, you can just keep going. Right.
Yep.
You know, and two, you can, Nick mentioned the cameras. So I haven't saved, I was going to show you guys how to do this, is to actually create a camera bookmark, right? So I like this 3/4 view. Let's get rid of that. So you go up into here, you just hit this little plus button here, and we'll call it 3/4. And I can't do that. Gotta actually type it out. If I can type.
Get some good questions too. Like, what do you do when you don't have a mock-up of the custom piece and it's something not available from any stock? One thing I was saying, you can do 3D extrude. You can actually, if it's a simple based product or shape, you can do 3D extrude on AI and save it as a 3D object and get that object into Dimension and now use. Yep. But another thing was one of the sneaks they showed yesterday. I don't know if you, John, if you saw that. They took the shoe and made a 3D model by just scanning it with their phone. So my first instinct was,
oh, that's pretty wild.
When you get that bottle or that packaging that there's no model for, I could take that new software, make my model by scanning it with my phone, a 360, and now I have something ready to go in Dimension.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing with the camera bookmark, so I just zoomed way out. I created two. So I got my 3/4 view, boom, zooms it in. Good. And I created a front view. Boom. So what I like to do too is when I'm going through and I'm actually building out projects, I learned traditionally in 3D where I have my top, my sides, front, you know, have different views so that you can look at it from different sides to make sure that everything is sort of going how you want it to look.
Yeah.
Gives you a lot of control and really, really easy to do this as well.
Perfect.
So let's jump back into Illustrator. And so what I also did too was I built out a couple of other different items. So I've got a beer bottle, a beer glass, and a coaster. So let's go in and let's actually create a new beer bottle.
Awesome. Let's see what we got.
And I can just use the same artwork. And apply my label to it.
Nice. Jason was asking, he says he uses Dimension a lot, but always forget how to change the same graphic on multiple objects. Oh, you're got to be using library, because the beautiful thing is, let's say any of these things we've brought over there, when you go to it as a source, double click it, it will open up that from the library. And if you make any changes there, it's universal on any object you placed it. So as long as it's coming from library and you didn't change the name, Jason, that should help you out. Give that a shot.
Think of it like the smart objects in Photoshop.
Exactly.
It works in that exact same fashion.
It's all linked.
All right, so I have a beer bottle here. So what I'm going to do is actually, let's just get rid of this label here.
Don't do it, Jay. Don't do it.
I know. So gone, right? So I can easily now apply that same graphic by going in here. I'm gonna show you guys how to do this again. So go to your actual object. I'm gonna click that arrow there. And there's a thing here called a decal, place graphic on model. So let's go back up to my labels. Gonna just take a second for that guy to come in again.
Mm-hmm. John even asked, can you modify the models? And they totally are modifiable. Sometimes if he clicks on that bottle, or if it has 3 or 4 parts, in the element scene area, you're going to get the breakdown of each. You'll get cap, ring, bottle, jar, whatever it is. Each one of those is completely movable, scalable. You can even take like the cap off and rest it next to the, let's say you have like a jar. You could take the cap off and rest it right next to it. So
it all depends on how they're building it. You know, so or how, if you are actually know how to work in 3D, how you build it as well too.
Exactly. Yep.
So let's actually apply something to the neck as well of this bottle.
You can't do that. That's impossible.
Right,
there
so
it is.
then let's just scale this guy down.
That's where it's, see, now this is great. Each model can take multiple art to it. And the way he's doing it here is he brought that in as a PNG, I'm assuming, right? Yep, that's what it looks like.
Well, no, this is an AI file.
Oh, there you go, even better.
I typically, with all of these, I like to work in AI files. One, because it's easy, you can go back and edit it really quickly, right? You can work in PNGs, it's fine, as long as the resolution is high enough.
Yes.
But you can see, this is how I typically like to build models, is that I'll use decals. And so, you know, with a beer bottle and the label itself is it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
But some objects like what Nick was working on with those other panels, when you start using those decals, you can get control of how each side looks.
Yes. I would totally advise doing it that way. I was just showing you the quickest way. But you're right. These decals make all the difference in the world. I love the idea of using the AI too, because I've noticed too, some of my students are currently working in Dimension in this big project. And what we noticed is if you have something in Illustrator and you save it to library, but the scale of it is very small, it improves when you increase the size of it and put it into libraries. I noticed that things get crisper and cleaner. Yes, and Ryan was even asking, do you keep your AI files at 300 DPI? So you don't even have to really because of the vector version of it, right?
No, actually, you know, what I've been noticing, the more that I've worked in it, is that you have to look at the resolution of your actual file itself and look at how big it is. I've noticed it getting sort of pixelated on the renders.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this one, like I can actually, like Nick was just saying, I can bring this up, drop this guy.
How much fun is that?
Onto here. All right, and that's starting to look really
all
good.
You did was drag it and it knows to read the plane much better. Look at that.
Right?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So, you know, and once my graphics are built, literally I did this in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Right? And one of the cool things is when you render it out, you can render it as either a PNG or a PSD.
Yes.
So when you open this guy up in the Photoshop, so this is just the cans here. So I can change the background color in here. So it gives you the options. It also gives you all the masks, depth information, etc. you can mess with.
So helpful.
And then I can go in here and I can just easily change the colors, right? If I wanted to select from here or here, you know, something along those lines. Really simple to mess with. And then if I wanted, what I like to do a lot of the times is I will actually just save this out as a PNG so that I can bring it into Illustrator when I'm doing layouts and presentations, and it gives me a lot of control.
And all your shadows are part of the PNG. You place it over anything and you get that realist kind of vibe.
Correct. Yeah. Like, so that is what I did here.
That's fantastic. See that?
So I just have my gold background and I had this guy just laid on top of it, right?
Exactly. Looks great, man. Yes, you can start seeing how, one thing too, man, I've noticed with so many other options of trying to make a collection like you're doing in your case study, I find if I'm doing one thing on a smart object and I'm doing one thing on some other thing, or I'm mocking up something, my brand colors tend to look different all over the place. And the beauty of what's happening here is the value of your blues and your gold are really working and staying consistent throughout everything you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do fashion designer wanted to play around if I wanted to bring in human models to take them in? I think there are some unique ways to do it. I would double check on that. I don't think there's probably the most flexibility with something like that. Not quite sure.
Yeah, a little bit harder, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are probably t-shirts and things like that, but actually having it applied onto human, because you get into some complicated mapping.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Oh, Jeffrey was asking the difference, why the PNG and why not just bring in the PSD? At 1.2, when you're saving the PNG in Dimension, it's much quicker because it's not layering it, but you do get the effect of the transparent white. So it's a quicker render if you just need it for that sake. But of course, if you want editing abilities to pull out background, change, and do whatever, for sure I would do the PSD as well.
Yeah, so that's what I like to do typically, is just render it out as the PSD with the transparency or the color. And then from Photoshop, let Photoshop do its thing, right?
Yes.
Where it can save out the PNG easily. And I could have brought in the PSD to my Illustrator file.
Yeah.
But that's only going to increase the size of my Illustrator file, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm thinking about the overall overhead size of what my file is going to be, so that I can do things quicker.
Jason has a question. He says it's silly. I don't think it's silly at all. He goes, but he wants to know, have we presented professional client work to clients in Dimension, and how was it received? That is why we are here. This is, it's been a game changer for both of us. I'm redoing everything on my website that was previously done in photography, and I'm redoing it in Dimension.
Yeah, it's really easy. You know, one thing to bring up too is that if you're an in-house designer, to be able to quickly apply logo to swag, a pencil, a water bottle, whatever it is, send it to your marketing manager.
Oh, you're a hero.
You know, one, they're going to be wowed by it because they won't be able to, probably haven't seen things like that. You can send them the model, which we'll get into a little bit, via a text, and they can just look at it on their desk.
Yes.
You can also share that directly to basically a web page, and they can spin the model around.
Exactly. That's fantastic. Someone was asking too, obviously this is great for packaging design, but how many model examples and mockups are there in the software? It's not just packaging, which is fantastic. Look at, he's scrolling through all the models. You have tables, chairs, backdrops, backpacks, shopping carts. Then there's also 3D type, guys. You can bring in type now, something you've extruded or made in Illustrator and Photoshop, or the type tool is now in there where you can actually write something three-dimensional in any of your fonts and add it as a background, add it as a prop. Don't forget, these are, you know, I'm seeing people use Dimension in the most unpackaging creative ways. It's pretty unique.
Yeah, you know, and that the type ability too, and bringing that in the Aero is really powerful. You can do a lot of cool things with that.
Definitely. Yep. Taking a simple, I've even taken the brand logo, like the logo you've done there, and you can extrude it in either Illustrator or in Photoshop, save it, get it in as a 3D object, bring it into this, and now you have this really cool piece that can just, you can stack it right next to the cans. You can do something really cool. We've got about 10 minutes, so maybe you want to pop into, we're going to switch over to the phone and start showing you what we can do with Aero. I'll keep looking at questions while we switch over. Let's see, what computer specs are you using to get these quick speeds that you're seeing? I'm at about 30 some odd megs with mine. What are you maxed out on yours?
I have 64 gigs.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty maxed on mine. I just recently got a new computer.
There you go.
So it helps, you know, before, you know, probably with an older computer or like a MacBook or something like that, you know, to render out like that pine tree scene that I had.
Yeah.
You might be looking at about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah. I've been in the same zone. I'm seeing it on different levels.
Yep. I am going to jump over.
Let's see. Eric was saying too, he was worried about starting freelancing full-time and not enough to do, only 1 month in. Now I am worried about not getting to get my projects done. Well, now you can, because you are going to be doing them in Dimension, and you've got much more time to do that. That's fantastic. Do you use PNG 24 so you can have the transparent gradients, or do you just use PNG 8? Let's see, where it has the hard edge transparency. That's a good question, John. I think I've switched back and forth. If I really need those to be flawless, yeah, I will go with the 24. But most of the time, I'm definitely in there.
Yeah, I did. I am working on this little technical difficulties over here. Sorry about that.
Trying to convert all of your internal 2D vehicle wraps. Oh, that's a great idea. Yep. What else? Any other questions that you guys have here?
Oh yeah, okay. Got it.
We are pulling up the QuickTime here in a second. Ooh, 3D printing from a design. I would say, not that I am aware of. I don't know if it has that capability, But judging from everything we've been seeing and sneaks and everything, it's got to be on the way, something like that. Oh, I'm glad you liked it, John. Thanks so much. Yeah, this is great. All right, so we've got a little Aero demo. Go for it.
This is opening up Aero. So basically how this works is it finds an area to scan. All right, so I found an area on my desktop here.
And let me interject too. Keep in mind, he's got his Creative Cloud linked to Aero on his phone. So anything he's shared in the library, he has full assets too.
So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna take, first, why don't we just take my 6-pack of beer that I did. I'm gonna drop that in. Takes a little bit of a second.
Yep. Okay,
there it is. Now I can spin it. I can rotate it with my fingers. And you can see.
It even look at the lighting kind of changing as you move your camera around. It's pretty remarkable how this works. Now, this is something great. Jay and I have both used this to show our concepts next to competitors. So if a client has a big competitor out there and you want to see how your packaging stands up to it, he could have placed those right on the table and shown the new ones next to it, right? And it's this perfect way of showing everything you've done to really ensure that you really get a great one.
Yeah, so now I'm gonna add in the Nick's oat milk.
Look at this.
We'll have a breakfast of champions here.
Worlds collide. We have both of our products together, ready to go. That would make a breakfast of champions, like you said.
So it's jumping around a little bit.
Specific phone for Aero. I know it's 100% iPhone. I believe it could be through the Android. You'll have to double check that on. I'm not too sure, but I've been using it on my my phone with no problem on my iPhone.
So this thing is actually not tapping on here. There we go. Let's see.
Yeah, Cody, definitely add it to your workflow for sure. This is all here for you. It's an app we can all download. You know
that one. I'm going to try to bring yours in again. It was jumping around all over the place.
No problem. Megan, you bring up a great point. Yes, you can bring in imported textures that you have captured on Adobe Capture. So if you see a beautiful stone or wood grain, shoot it in Capture, save it as a texture, or I believe, yes, texture. And now it's in your library and it will work seamlessly in Adobe Dimension as well.
And that's a great way to go about it. Just create your own. Yeah, you can take actually any texture file and apply it to a model as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Bart. Appreciate you guys' comments here. This is great.
Yes, so there's both of ours.
Look at that. We live in totally different cities, and yet we have created a virtual photo shoot with both of our products that we've created.
Right. And so one of the cool things from here too is that I can actually export out a model, export as, and then I can choose either an Aero Experience or a USDZ, which a USDZ will allow anybody to open up an AR model on their phone. So I can text this to a client, they can take a look at it.
Yes.
And I'll show you guys what that looks like in a second.
Perfect.
And they can drop it right onto their desk. So if I go into, let's see here.
And Shale brought up a question, best way to start using Aero from non-3D designers. And this is great. There's all starter assets in there that you guys can just pull from and use. So they're all there and it's fantastic. So keep that in mind. You don't have to build anything. You can go right in there. You can add a tree and a table and you name it and start messing around with Aero without any assets from yourself.
And it's just taking a second to think here.
Cool, Maureen, yes, totally agree. I'm a toy packaging designer as well. This is so great to show.
And that just came out massive, which is kind of fun in itself. Right, so this is directly in my iPhone.
Yep.
Right, so not everybody's gonna have Aero. But
iPhone now has that capability of doing it right through the camera lens.
Androids do as well.
Yep.
So that's great. It's really easy just to send it to them. And a lot of fun things you can do with this.
Cool. We've got just about 3 minutes, guys. So any other last questions? We'll try to do our best rapid fire here. Thanks so much, Jason. Appreciate it. Really cool. Thanks, Carol. Yes, so if we've done anything here, try Dimension out, mess around with it. Adobe has tons of great resources and tutorials online to check them out. And then Aero, I mean, just mess with it on your phone, you know, show your friends. It's literally magic on your phone. It's outrageous. Then bring the worlds together. Find a model you've done on Dimension, bring it in. Such a blast, right? I think this
it's a lot of fun. You can do a lot of animation stuff in here as well too. You can make things spin, drop, you know, all sorts of different things, you know, just sort of try to think outside the box and have fun with it.
Yeah, fantastic as well. Any other questions? Thanks, Tiffany. We really appreciate it. When will Aero be available for Android? We're double check on the maybe on the Aero website. I'm sure it will be there. Thanks, Ryan, as well. Appreciate it as well. Is this going to be where can you find Aero on the Google Play? It's Adobe Aero, so take a look at it there. I'm sure it should show up somewhere. We've got about a minute left, guys. Let's see. Thanks so much, Rod. We appreciate it. Narek as well. All I could say, guys, is really give this a shot. I haven't opened a single manual or anything, and I think Jay's the same. We've been self-taught with both of these. Yep. It's definitely a blast to try. Thanks again, Carol. We really appreciate it. And Aero as well. This is so much fun to do it. Can you drop in a quick starter asset on Aero? Oh, you're on the other one. I forgot.
Yeah, I'm on the other one. If we have time here, I know we're gonna have a hard cutoff here.
Just got about 30 seconds. Yeah.
All right.
No worries.
So, yeah. But recommend trying out for yourself. But thank you guys for your time.
Yeah.
It was a blast.
This was really, really good. If you have any questions, follow up on me. You can find me Longo Designs on Instagram. Jay, your Live Design Co.
Yep.
We appreciate it, y'all. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of Max. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you.